Today we're going to be looking at how to achieve that Barbie style photo editing look in Lightroom so that we could take things out of camera that look like this to things that look like this. But before we jump into Lightroom, we need to take a look at some things that happen on set before we even jump into photo editing. We're going to take a look at the Barbie movie trailer real quick to analyze what we can control on set and what we need to do in editing. So here's a still frame from the Barbie trailer. You'll see what separates our subject from the background isn't so much that the background is out of focus, because it's just slightly out of focus, but it's actually that our subjects are not lit traditionally in a cinematic way with like Rembrandt lighting that comes down at a 45-degree angle, highlights one side of the face, puts the other side in shadow. What's happening is they're actually like living in the midtones here by backlighting our subjects, hitting them with like a kick, and you'll see that they're kind of like silhouetted from the background because the highlights live and serve as a purpose to kind of like pull them out. A lot of our set here is pink and white. And you'll notice as we go through this trailer just a little bit more that there's blues here that anchor our kind of shadows. So even this setting here, you look at our set, there's a lot of white, there's a lot of pink, there's some green and a lot of blue in the water and sky. And that's really how all of the shots are when they take place in Barbie world. So you see here in this image here, our backgrounds aren't really neutral. There's a lot of pink in them. There's a lot of blue in them as well. But our subject, again, here, whenever they're in Barbie land, they're actually in really diffused light. So we get a nice, even lit face and subject here. There's no specular highlights in the highlights here, meaning that there's no like really harsh reflections that you would get if you're hitting with a key light. And everything is kind of soft and almost a little bit dull. And what's separating our subjects from the background is color and this rim light again. So when we're setting this up in pre-production, we want to think about these things. We want to get some blues. We definitely want to get some pinks and purples into our shot, or we want something that would separate them from the background. So it wouldn't be pink, it'd probably be like something black or blue, like a royal blue. There's a lot of royal blue in this movie. All right, so we are jumping into Lightroom here, and I found an image that I think is going to work for our Barbie setting. So you can see there's a lot of pink already. There's some reds, there's some oranges, and this couch is kind of a teal color. And so we can work with that here because it's kind of like a good setting right here. You can also see, if we zoom in, there are almost no specular highlights on our subject here, which is a little bit more even lighting. If you look at our histogram, some in the black here, we're just barely at clipping, and there's some clipping in the brightest part of the image, which is light, and I am okay with that. Lights usually get pretty close to clipping, and that's fine because the brightest part of our image is in the background, just like in the Barbie movie. Our first edits are going to be way more global and large in nature, and then we're going to work our way down to more granular adjustments. And by doing that, we are going to see huge shifts over time that are very gradual, and we'll be able to go in and shift anything particular that is not looking quite right at the very end. So as we're doing this, you'll notice that my subject's skin color and her clothes are going to get messed up. And that's fine because we're going to correct for that at the very end. So let's press Y to see our before and our after. So on the left here, we're going to be taking a look at everything from the original image as shot from camera. And on the right is going to be final product. First, I'm going to come down to the tone curve, and I'm going to bring my whites down just a little bit because there's almost nothing that was like a pure white in that movie. And our blacks, we can move them up just a tiny bit, not much. But the whites can come down. We're going to create just a little bit more contrast. And again, we can always make these fine-tuning adjustments, come back to them at the end, but I want a little bit more in the background there to be popping out. So that's just in our tone curve for dark to light. So we're going to move over to the red channel here. I'm going to put 3 points on there. And really what I think this image needs in the darks is to come down a little bit because we want this couch to kind of anchor everything. Almost everything dark in that movie was a like greenish teal or a like royal blue color. So this is going to be, and the black there in her outfit is going to be the thing that kind of like creates contrast in color for us in this image. We're going to bring our highlights up just a tiny bit and our midtones. And again, we're ignoring what's happening to the skin tones. We're looking at everything else. We're looking at the setting right now. So I like this down just a tiny bit. Our greens. Let's anchor these and play with them just a little bit. All right, we're going to bring the shadows up just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to bring this midtone down. You can see what it's doing to our rug and our wall back there because we're skewing again away from green, which is going to bring in a little bit more pink. And you can see just before, after, remember, ignore our subjects for now. This is getting a little bit closer to that Barbie look. Now, this is the era that I was talking about where everyone just kind of like throws pink on here and they're like, oh yeah, it's great. But you can see it's really not helping our subject out a lot, and it's really not helping out our blacks. We're going to adjust for that. But this is not the stopping point. This is like the halfway point. So let's move over to our blue channel, and we can actually inject a little bit more blue into this couch if we want to bring it up, which I think is good. I want it to look a little bit more like the Barbie movie did. I'm going to bring my midtones back down and my highlights. What happens if I take a little bit more yellow out? We're getting a lot more pink in the wall. And so I like that. So there's our before and our after. We're making some like these little tiny adjustments in the tone curve make huge differences. So now what we want to do is take a look at our histogram, make sure we're not clipping anywhere. That's good. That's good. We can see where everything lives. So there's a lot of red in our highlights. That makes sense because of this wall here. There's a lot of red in our low lights, and that makes sense because we pushed some red into the low. All right, let's scroll down to our calibration. And we're going to play around just a little bit with this slider. I like what this is doing here to the couch, putting a little bit more pink into the shadows. I'm actually going to leave that there for now. We might come back. You can see there's some banding going on here the more I play with it. So we're going to try and leave this alone as much as possible. So I'm probably going to leave that at 0. Nope. You can always double click on the word red primary to get to go back to normal. Let's play with this green here. So you can see as we shift the greens more towards yellow, it's getting a little bit more warm. And as we shift it away, it's becoming a little bit more cool. And I like what it does to the couch, but I don't like what it does to everything else. So we're going to leave it there. Leave that there. These are feeling pretty saturated to me. I actually like that hue a little bit more into the blue there. And we can leave that like +10, +15 for those. I recently found out that YouTube is actually running ads in front of our channel, even though we're not monetized yet, because we have some videos that are doing exceptionally well. So if you'd like to help us out, hit that subscribe button, or share this with a friend. Let us know in the comments what was most helpful, or if you have any questions. We'd love to be as helpful to you as possible. So part of that is you letting us know what kind of content we should create next, or things you want to learn how to do. Just let us know and we'll try and do it. So let's come up here to our color mixer, and I'm going to get out of the HSL because I want to do this color by color. So these are going to be a little bit more like granular fine-tuning adjustments. So what I want to go over here is to the pink, and these are more pastel pinks like in the movie. So we're going to bust out our luminance slider up to like 25 here for this image. And again, these will be done to taste for your photos. That's what happens if we bring the saturation up just a little bit more to maybe like +17, and we can skew these a little bit more towards the red or towards the the purple channels. But I like this magenta slider of right here. Purples, there's not much purple going on in our image, so we can leave that. But if there is purples in your image, you can skew them over towards magenta, away from purple to make it look a little bit more Barbie-like. A lot of it is really just going on in our ball up at the top, so we're just going to leave that as is. Blues. I'm going to shift my blues over to the right a little bit, and you can see some of the undertones in the couch there are moving a little bit further away from the aqua. That's good saturation there. And that's kind of what I'm paying attention for. Leave the luminance at 0. Aqua. You can make a choice here and shift it more towards green. I want to shift it more towards blue because there's a lot more blue in Barbie than there is green. And there is some green, but it's mostly natural. The fake trees in Barbie Land are this kind of green color. So if you're shooting your image outside, what you're going to do is you're probably going to shift your greens over towards aqua. You're probably going to bump the saturation and the luminance down so that they have a little bit more richness to it. Almost so like they look a little bit more like the couch on the left here into that color because it's going to anchor your contrast by giving there something to play off of, especially the pink in terms of like the color wheel, the opposite sides, and in terms of like the pinks are mostly pastel and vibrant, and the greens are still vibrant, but they skew towards like darker greens. So you add a little bit more luminance there to pull those out. There's not a lot of yellow in Barbie. There is some, and there's some yellow in our couch here. And in our lights in the background. I actually want to keep them. I think they separate them just a little bit more from the background by doing that. And you can bump up some luminance and some saturation if you would like, depending on your image. Like if you have yellow flowers, you might want to wash them out a little bit by, increasing the luminance. Oranges here, we're going to skew. There's not much orange in Barbie, so we can skew them towards the reds. And I'm going to decrease the saturation a tiny bit in there. What does luminance look like if we bump it up? Well, we're losing a little bit in the, well, you know what? Just this shift here, I'm going to leave the luminance as is. And same with the saturation. Reds, there's almost no reds in Barbie, so we can shift our reds over. The only reds I think there are was like in lipstick that I could kind of, find. So shifting things over to yellow makes things look a little bit more like mid-century honor retro picture, but bringing it over to the left makes everything a little bit more pink. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to bring up the luminance. No, I'm going to leave it where it is because it's affecting our pink channel up there. And saturation is looking good. Maybe like a -9 in the reds because our pinks are very saturated. So now we have a before and an after. And you're saying like, hey, this looks way more Barbie, except our skin. What do we do about our skin? We're almost there. Let's move over to our color grading tool here. And this is going to like kind of like more globally affect colors again. And I'm going to add just a little bit, bring this ring right to the edge of the dot there. I don't want it to be super exaggerated, and you can kind of see what's going on when we play with it here. So highlights, I'm going to leave just a little bit warm. Mid-tone, sorry, just a little bit warm. Let's play with the highlights, see what that does here. I'm actually going to bring them down to blue. It's going to create a little bit of contrast while not removing the overall tonality of things here. And so let's look at the before and the after there. Very subtle, but we're getting a little bit more of that pastel back. So what this is doing is in the highlights, so anything in like this area right here in our histogram, that would be in white is going to skew a little bit more towards blue. Same thing on this side is going to skew just a tiny bit with like a cast of blue to it. So if you look at the shadow on this side and that side here, it's a cool shadow. It's not a warm shadow. So that's what we're doing there. Same thing applies in the midtones here. So now I think we're at a good point here, but let's play around with some of the basic sliders. I actually do a lot of my basic editing at the very end here. If I like how it's kind of shot out of camera, and we'll play around with these just a little bit. Let's do our highlights. I really don't want to lose too much up in the your hair up here area. We can, but it is bright. We want it to be, hey, this is very glowy. What are our shadows? I actually like our shadows bumped up to maybe like +15. Let's play with our whites. What about our blacks? I kind of like this right there. Now let's correct skin tones and hair. So what's really cool is in Lightroom Classic, if you've updated, you can see right here, when you select your brush tool, it'll select the person for you. So you can do like a a global mask of the person automatically. So I'm going to do that. And then we're going to do, again, work with like global fixes for our subject and then go down to smaller little pieces of her, which is really good. And it did a really good job of selecting her. A lot of times people who have tattoos, it has a hard time, detecting that that's actually skin. That's one thing where I think that this program can get a little bit better. So let's go through here. And what we're going to do is, since we've added a lot of pink to this image, we are going to skew away from the magentas, add some green back in, and you can see her skin tone is looking a little bit healthier, right? And so we can go back in here, add a little bit more blues in there. And now we're getting back to something that looks a little bit more like a normal skin tone. And let me just show you the before and after. Before, after, before, after. It's looking a lot better. So I want to zoom in this area right here. Okay. So let me go back to my mask. And so you can go back and select people, or you can brush certain objects out. Let's say there's something in here you're like, oh, I don't like how that looks. And you can do the same thing we just did for that object. But let's select our person again. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next one.